you for being here. I appreciate you being here, and we have a lot to get through. So let's go ahead and get started. If you're still grabbing your food, feel free to take your time. If we could please squeeze in where there are papers. And then I know it's crowded, so I left the table in between if you want to turn around and kind of eat and move back and forth. But we are going to need to be in groups of 4 for our discussion today. So if you could kind of squeeze in, unless you want a group of 2, then you're going to be responsible for the information of 2 people. So, I wanted to do an announcement about our March Madness campaign that starts next week. We have a couple of teams signed up. I would love more teams. Derek's heading up a team. We've got the 1200 Pod Squad. Is anyone else interested in joining the March Madness, but you're looking for a team? If we could do some raised hands and then people can look around and find people that want to participate. Janice. Okay. Young. Janice, right? Janice, will you raise your hand? She wants a team for March Madness, so you 2 can connect afterwards. Okay. Okay, if anyone else wants to sign up, I brought the paper, or you can sign up with the Google form that's in an email, but you're welcome to grab this paper on the way out, put it in my box. You can really start any time, but the benefit is starting Monday because we're going with the total number of everything at the end. So the earlier you get started, the better off you'll be. The reward is everyone who participates is the $50 stipend, and the winning team will get lunch of their choice from any restaurant around in this area that I'll go pick up for you and you can have with your team. Questions about that challenge? If you haven't set up TeachFX yet and you still want to go, and this is the time that you're like, yeah, this is enough reward, I'll try it, then set up an appointment with me and I'll help you get rolling with it. Okay, that's that item of business. So today we are learning how to scaffold our discussion through structures and routines that align with our students' competencies so that we can prepare students to be able to critically think and discuss independently in the future. We will not get through everything I would dream of. As I prepared this, I'm not kidding you, all of a sudden an entire book came to my head to outline it. Tonight I have 30 minutes. So we will scratch the surface and then any follow-up questions that you have, let's discuss together. All right, the first thing I want to do is a little jigsaw activity. So at your table, each one of you has a captain's log. So in a group of 4, you should have entry 2, entry 5, entry 8, and entry 12. These are pretend logs from a captain's journal out to sea with new crew members. And I want you to individually read your paragraph from the captain's log, make some connections to yourself and your students with regards to your teaching, and then we'll discuss as a group. So I'll give you a few minutes to just independently digest that. If anybody needs a pencil, raise your hand and I'll come bring you one. with entry number 2. Whoever read that one, and we'll go in numerical order to discuss how this relates to you and your students. Actually, I need to back up a quick second. When one of our people who interacted with Captain Knoxworthy today would like to explain to us the difference between standing rigging and running rigging, and what is rigging. Troy.
The difference is one holds up the mast and is permanent, it's not moving. The other is what they use to adjust the sail. Catch the wind.
Okay, if you couldn't hear him over there, standing rigging holds up the mast and it's permanent, and running rigging you adjust. Okay, we're gonna come back to this metaphor throughout today, Johnny.
I just mentioned something too. I tried to answer it to like a high school student. I don't know if I just threw everything at it. Like, what are you talking about? Of course, everybody learns. Just tried to be sarcastic. It was really interesting how it led me back to the point. Kept me on task and then changed it a different way. So it was actually kind of weird when I was trying not to answer it. Because I had no clue what it was. I was trying to act like.
Right? That's awesome. And it's really cool on my end. I get a report of how engaged each person who interacted was. It'll say like highly engaged or moderately engaged but got frustrated. Like, so it's kind of interesting. Okay, so with that in mind of rigging, go ahead and discuss how that relates to you and your students starting with entry 2.
So this is kind of the beginning efforts where the captain is teaching the crew kind of the basics and giving them the purpose and knowing that the captain is shouting out assignments and the crew is able to do it, but not without the guidance. Establishing purpose, teaching skills, and building routines, which is the basic of purpose. And my thought was, I think I'm pretty good at letting them take content and use it through projects or case studies or working or whatever. But I'm not sure I do a really good job of establishing that purpose.
So, this one's out of the first grouping study though. So, your movements are less clumsy, face with uncertainty, hesitate. So you said, let them work through it. So give them direction. Let them do it, right? They kind of hesitated, they had a time. One person, one made a mistake and set the line with you. So stepped in, then was securing the line and back to the track. So, well, I guess like you're getting them going, but they're not, like, they're starting to get confident, but it's very easy that they don't know what to do. So, it says, how do you get your crew back on track when things go awry? And I like to come back to like something that you're like, whether it's a routine or activity that we've done multiple times, and if they start getting like, yeah, I don't know what to do, okay, well, let's do it this way. Oh yeah, we know that. So I try to take that. And I think it is sometimes, depending on how far along.
Can you show me on your fingers how many minutes you might need to finish through 12? Let's do 2.
What are you gonna do? But I mean, it's a little bit of a flawed number. You're never gonna just let them go. Captain Ship's never gonna like, yes, and never gonna step away, but you just wanna make it work.
Alright, finish your sentence. Maybe not your paragraph.
By the way, did those girls?
But short of it,
Okay, let's come back with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 0.34, 0.17, 0.02. Okay, we're ready. All right, so in discussing this, I'm curious, there was a question at the end of 12 that said, would you press on or would you go back? I'm curious what your group said about this one. Would you press on if you were the captain? Would you go back? Can I get somebody to answer this? Austin.
So I'm really opinionated about this.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's 2 reasons, right? So I am always in favor of pressing on. I'm also in favor of being clear and concise, so that when you build on previous ideas, you always do a quick recap of the skill that you're using and going forward with. But you cannot. I would never go back and reteach an entire lesson that I taught before. Never do it. I would run out of time. And I value getting through the curriculum and letting the students that signed up for chemistry get all of chemistry, rather than making sure that the kids on the bottom have a second or third attempt to not learn it. To learn it.
So, but, thank you for being so passionate. Would you, if you were this captain with this scenario, would you just push on and encounter the same scenario the next time? Is there anything that you would reteach as this captain?
So I would encourage the ones that are struggling, I would pull them aside and have conversations with them and say, hey, you're behind, you gotta get top of this, come in extra.
So you would invite them into act in the aft? Nice, I love that. Okay, Dennis.
To piggyback on what Austin said, I am also a fan of pushing on. However, in seeing where my crew was unprepared, I would actually partner them up for mentoring with the members of the crew that were better prepared. I would still be pushing on, but since everything that I do does build on prior skills, I will be retouching on each thing that I've already talked about several more times. I just now know where to put that focus more directly in order to help this particular crew to master the skills necessary to safely get to our destination.
Awesome. So So I heard you would use some precision peer partnering, mentoring, and spiral review built into your curriculum. Awesome, thank you. Melissa?
So, we said, return to the basics, but we also said sometimes that you can't. So it depends on what the situation is. Is it like a small part of a concept that you could go back and reteach or give more review on so that then they can get it? Or is it like behavior that you really do just have to go back in and like reteach this because they are not getting it? But also the other thing is, if it's a skill that you're going to like keep working on, then you know as a teacher you can do things to improve. So like when I was trying to get my kids to do BBQs, I scaffolded it and it wasn't enough. And so then the next time I did one, like I didn't go back and redo that one, but the next time I did one, like I added examples. And then when I found out about the custom chatbot, I added that. And then finally I got enough together that I'm like, oh great, now they're getting it. So you may not have to go back completely, but you can still be improving on your teaching to make sure they're getting it eventually.
Awesome. So you would not advise this captain to go all the way back to port to fix this cruise issues?
Yes.
Just back a little bit and then add to the next time. So add more scaffolding in the future. Perfect. Thank you. Elena?
I wanted to speak to like, so when I read this, it sounded like the whole crew is in chaos. Not just like a couple.
Okay. Good thought.
Troublemakers. So I have definitely tried some new things in my classroom where I immediately realized that like, wow, the way that I taught this was ineffective. So when I get to that point, like I immediately will go back and reteach. Because I feel like if the whole class is not getting it, I messed that up, they didn't mess that up, and it's my job to fix it. And especially when you're trying new things or like teaching something new or just a new teacher, I feel like that happens a lot. And being able to recognize that like, this might be on me. And beginning to like reteach this another way and then move forward.
So trying to see how much of a percentage of
Yeah,
your crew is in chaos
yeah.
and then decide who needs to fix that problem. Is it the mentor, the kids, you as a
Yeah.
captain? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Jen?
I think that there's sometimes when we just have to stop, and there are certain things that are so important that we're gonna let the other things slide. You know, we may not get to this part because this is more important, and so we have to adjust and realize where that's at. And different subjects have different things, but yeah, sometimes in math, it's like, we can't move on until you got this.
Yeah, and who gets to decide that?
You,
Yeah. Who's the captain of the ship?
and it's hard.
Yeah, it is. So sometimes maybe we need an assistant captain. What do they call those? The second mate or something like that? You need a first mate to talk to? Bring in.
Can I add a counter argument to that?
Sure.
So when it comes to something like math, which builds from math 9 to math 10 to math 11, if you as a math 9 teacher don't get through all the content, you're now making the math 10 teacher's job that much harder.
Yeah.
And so there is something to be said about getting through the content.
Agreed. However, if you don't get the math 9 stuff, you can't get the 10 or the 11. So it's a hard decision of where do you go? Do you push through and get a surface knowledge, or do you dive in deep and make sure that you really got this one thing?
If 80% of your students are there, you're good.
Cool news. Who gets to decide Jen's ship? Jen gets to decide Jen's ship. Who gets to decide Austin's ship? Austin. However, guess what? If somebody is depending on us, I think I'm gonna help Austin out here, getting us the gold to the next island, getting the transport of goods from one place to another, we do still have to be good at getting our kids from one place to another.
I want it to mean something when someone says they were a member of my crew.
Yeah. Well, good. Okay. Question though. That sounded a little antagonistic. Does anybody in here not want it to mean something? Alright, we're gonna take one more and then I'm gonna consolidate this so that we're not all angry at each other. Mutiny on Jackie's ship.
I think with us, it's kind of like a food. Some of us work together in Swedish. There's 3 of us. Most of one is what I teach. Most else teaches, 3, somebody else teaches, and so on. And so the communication between us, between our shifts as captains, is to say, hey, here's what we got going on. And if I can say, hey, I didn't get to this, somebody else next year is they're gonna know, because kids don't know. But if I can say, hey, I didn't quite get to this, they're aware, so that when it's like, okay, I gotta do a quick review of what we should already know, can take care of that or figure out what's going on with that.
I love that communication with your other ships and some vertical alignment among our fleet. I thank you for sharing that. Okay, Tom, you twisted my arm.
New Captain Tom is different than veteran Captain Tom. And I find that veteran Captain Tom focuses more on pre-corrections, where I know there's going to be disaster. I try to be strategic in where those slips are going to be, and so I work with my crew on where these common errors are before we're in the mess.
I love that pre-correction. Thank you for sharing that, being persistent, because in some of those entry logs, the captain probably could have used a little bit more pre-correction with his crew,
Mia
right?
Taylor, if you're in the building,
Okay.
please come to the office. Mia Taylor.
We get to skip through all this, we just did it, good job. Okay, so entry level rigging, I'm sorry for those of you who may need to turn, we're gonna talk about this one for a second. Entry level rigging, I'm gonna give an example of the turn and talk, because everybody knows the turn and talk, okay? Not saying it's the best structured discussion move out there, but it's one everybody knows. So, you must, this is me, 5-year Jackie, veteran Jackie, is like, I'm telling you, you must do this. This rigging needs to be in place on your ship for a turn and talk to be successful. You must tell them who to talk to. If I had had you scattered all over this room and tried to facilitate a jigsaw, we would have been all over, it would have taken me time. Hey, Michelle, can you go sit over there? Hey, can you go talk to there? Okay, so we need to tell them who to talk to. If a partner or neighbor isn't there, find them someone or they won't do it. Anybody experienced this before? Okay, so have a system, a structure in your class so that it's very routine for them to know exactly who they're talking to and hold them to it, okay? You must tell them who starts speaking first, or nobody will, or the same person always will, and the other person won't get a chance. So who started first today? Entry 2. That was a really quick thing for me to add in so that you knew where to start. Now, I learned from walking around the room, I could have been more explicit. Once you're done with 2, please start with 5. Okay? You must tell the other partner what to listen for. We suck at listening in general. And so we need to tell them what they're listening for. Today you knew that you were listening for how do you apply this in your class to your students. Okay? Teach the other partner to paraphrase back and forth so that they know how to listen, because listening is equal parts. Like, we need speaking and listening. We can't just all speak all the time, okay? And then we must give them a prompt that requires more than a 1 to 3 word response if we really want the discussion to continue. So it has to be an open-ended prompt. And then we might give them sentence stems if it's a challenging topic. Okay, that's, to me, this is a running rigging. This is a standing rigging, but we could probably start removing some of our standing rigging and turn it into running rigging if they get really good at it. So my assertion today is that a structure and a routine for speaking and listening is your major scaffold. Whatever, you've got to create the structure and the routine. Questions about that? Okay, so this next part, we got people coming in, so you're just gonna get a quick dive into this one. This is where the book came in. So underneath your stack, you have this little packet. This packet has, for me, the main reasons we would use discussion in our class. We would use discussion to clarify ideas. We would use discussion to create connections to real-world experiences. We would use discussion to give students ownership of their learning. We would use it to strengthen active listening and empathy. We would use it for critical thinking and consolidation of student learning. We wouldn't use it for all of those purposes every day, but we would use it for those purposes. Now, has a goal for what we would want our students to accomplish at their entry level into that type of discussion. And then a mid-level and a really, really solid level. Down below it, it has a possible format or possible use case for you in your class for each level. Our kids aren't gonna be at level 3 all the time, nor do we need to be in discussion level 3 even very often. Okay, then we have some scaffolds for student prompts. And some scaffolds that you would use at each of those levels, and how you would know as a teacher where they're at and when to move to the next level. So not all of them have them, it's a little bit of a work in progress for me. But there's some at the back that say students are ready when you're noticing these things, you know it's ready to move them up to the next level. The row after that says teacher actions to support this shift. So what I would challenge you to do over the next month is to pick one of these ideas and start looking at how to implement level 1, level 2, and level 3 in your class. And then one thing that I really did want to emphasize is on the second one, discussion as a connection to real world experiences. If you could turn to just page 2 with me. Level 3 is structured discussions and debates. This is high cognitive load for our students and for us. It requires structured argumentation, data analysis, ethical considerations, and long-term decision making. Can you just for a second think about how much of your day is spent in level 3 discourse in the real world? 20%, 90%, 2%? Okay? So we don't need to be with our students all the time. They're not gonna be in it 100% of their lives. Now look at level 4, high stakes global discourse. These are influencing policy and society conversations. We might have one of those in a trimester, maybe, in a high level class. So please, your takeaway is how can I spend several times a week in my level 1 and moving into level 2, peer-to-peer discussions with one of these intentions. Okay. I can tell that we're gonna get run over pretty quickly. My intention today was to have you get to do this and annotate a little bit now, but go ahead and do this on your own. Please feel free to call me in and we can discuss 2 one-on-one. Use these in your PLCs to talk about how you use discussion in your classroom. And remember, the C's are always full of 14 feet waves to navigate, nor do our discussions always need to be at level 3 depth.